Thank you, ICT Authority, Ministry of ICT, GIZ. Yeah, it's great to be here talking about this sector that I've lived up close and personal for the last 10 years. We can go to maybe the next slide. Oh, we have a thing. That's wonderful. Okay, so um, a bit of acronym salad for you. So Global Business Services is sort of the meta cat PO fits underneath. Within Global Business Services, you have IT enabled services, or ITO, right? That's actually a $800 billion market ish. BPO, as PS Tanui said, is around 300 billion. It's a market that globally is growing at about 6-7% year over year. It comprises everything. One of the reasons this sector is a bit important to dig in on, right, is that it's comprised of all these different kinds of job families. Everything from data annotation, content moderation, call centers, multi-channel customer experience, where maybe you're handling Uber Eats, all the way up to really sophisticated managed services that Infosys, Wipro, et cetera, provide. Out of hubs in New Jersey and Bangalore and so forth, where you're actually outsourcing your network architecture and you're outsourcing your systems, this kind of stuff. Currently, Africa is capturing 2.8%. This slide is just kidogo outdated, of a $1.2 trillion market. Within this market, the Philippines, interestingly, has 5 million people working within this sector. Africa as a continent has about 1 million. Okay. And the Philippines is just double the size of Kenya, right? So you can see the opportunity, and we'll get into why this is not working and why it is working. We can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm so used to like having people outsourcing my slides. I need like a GBS for slide stuff. Okay. Oh, see, I just out of practice. All right. So within Africa, there are some major success stories. We have Egypt, we have Morocco. South Africa, in a lot of ways, is the most interesting to me because of the way that public-private partnerships have worked there, and the way that they came together, which I'd love to see Kenya do, and I'm actively trying to get Kenya to do, come together and say, okay, by job family, how do we get from 35,000 jobs in the sector to 100,000 to 1 million, and then have people own various pieces of that by job family? When I say job family, I mean what CCI does as a CX provider to mostly US clients is going to be very different than what Technobrain does. And so when you're developing interventions and solutions for each, or by lookalike companies, it has to be really disciplined and looking at the training and the full stack, right? Kenya is obviously, I'm biased, but Kenya is like so ripe for this opportunity. We have the sort of the pioneering phase is through. So I was part of that wave. So I came here in 2016 and helped Cloud Factory grow from 7 people to 3,000 people. And I watched how that worked, right? I would meet with CS Musheru. I would run over to KRA and say, hey, what about transfer pricing? And they would say, what's transfer pricing? I said, we have some problems here. But we're now in a place where we have the right stakeholders, I think, that have the right memos, and we're getting there. But really, only it's a continent with maybe five what I would call mature markets, and even then, we're looking at a $5-6 billion market in South Africa versus an $800 billion market in India. India invented this sector, we all know, right? Okay, yeah, I remember that time. All right, so this is a snapshot of Kenya today. This does not take into account by whatever number you want to use, millions, hundreds of thousands of young people that are doing, just grabbing freelance work off the web, right? This is like people in formal employment within the sector. So when you see the 34,000 number, it definitely takes into account the 2,500 people at Cloud Factory, the 5,000 people at CCI, the 2,000 people at Teleperformance, the 2,000 people at Sama, the 200 people at Technobrain. That's what this is. Interestingly, Kenya also has a large domestic workforce that's involved in outsourcing. One of the reasons that, and I was talking to Alexander, the deputy ambassador earlier, is like it's a sector with an answer for everything, which is also kind of tricky. So if you need 100,000 women to find formal work, it's outsourcing, right? If you need an answer to young men that that are really into cybersecurity, it's outsourcing. So it's really important, and I'm not going to spend time on too many details because I know we're keeping this high level today. But because it is so massive, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, and it actually is an answer to a lot of things because 65% of the people in this sector in Africa are women. Imagine, right? That's crazy. And I think 87% are youth. And so when we think about solutions to the challenges that Africa is facing, it's a very, very important sector, and it also really plays well into career advancement. So some people say, well, why do we really want? I'm in meetings all the time. Do we really want people in call centers? Yeah, we do. And the reason is that you're getting global exposure for a couple of years. You're learning how all the different people in your company function. You know what the marketing person does. You know what IT does. And you're also working with global clients that have really rigorous SLAs, service level agreements. So when we look at Kenya, what is its value proposition? Every country in Africa right now can boast a strong youth population, pretty much. And that's number 3. I've heard from a number of people that the empathy in Kenya and the neutral accent is a real differentiator. I would say if I had to simplify it for somebody, it's probably value for money, and it's also the unique ecosystem that Nairobi provides. Because I don't know that there's anything quite like it on the continent, where obviously you have the UN here, but then you have this confluence of development money, venture capital, etc. And so it's a really interesting place to try out new things. So a snapshot of the companies, of the operators. Adept is in there that are already here, and as you can see, there are many Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 brands from all over the world that are already being serviced from Kenya. This is from a study that was referenced by P.S. Tanui and I think Alexander, the deputy ambassador, as well. And it is a huge gap, and you could do this study probably in the UK or the US, and you probably find similar unfulfilled technology jobs. It's just that, first of all, there's lots of competition. So where are these jobs being fulfilled? Well, if it's higher level ITO, it's probably Eastern Europe, Costa Rica, again, India. And so it's extremely competitive. And in Kenya, we did a scan of the 1.9 million individuals that are in ICT enabled jobs in the country. And the higher you go up the stack in terms of your salary, competencies, all that kind of stuff, the thinner the labor pool gets, as you would expect. I mean, it's a 19 years of age average population, right? So yeah, I'll keep going. This is probably the most important slide, at least to me. So when there are sort of 3 ways to create jobs in the global economy, in my opinion. One is to market Kenya, and that's that number 1, negative perceptions around the investment environment and business case in Kenya and Africa. We did a study, and the 4 things that global operators are looking at when I say sell Kenya, 4 top things are, cost, talent, scalability, and risk. That risk piece can really get you into trouble and end the story if you're trying to court an investor, right? So you got to do everything you can when they come to make it look really nice. basically, to make it look like everything's going to work and take away that risk perception. Because trust me, that risk perception is very, very, very real, especially when you're comparing it against, the Philippines, an established location. Lack of a go-to-market strategy, meaning are we effectively selling Kenya? And that leads into the next point there, which is public data. When you're actually looking at, an operator coming to a country and saying, can we operate here? You better have exact, fully loaded costs on by job family, by, this is how much a cybersecurity professional will be. This is a call center agent, blah, blah, blah. This is it against Colombia, Philippines, etc. And most countries that do this well, all of them actually have this data. So we've done a fair amount of work recently on providing this data. If you go to kenyaoutsourcing.com, you can download a bunch of figures and on that. Yeah, am I out of time? Okay. 20 seconds. You want to tell a joke? So I think I'll just say that it's important, again, that we all just come together and create, not just get the BPO policy done. There's incentives in there around making, for example, any company that's over 300 people in this industry, like an automatic SEZ. Philippines did something very similar. Stuff like that's really crucial to signal to the world that Kenya is open for business and we're ready to compete with everybody. Rwanda has done a fantastic job of this as well. And so then leading to a sector master plan where we all hold each other accountable for numbers year over year. That's where I'd love to see it go.
Thank you, JB. That was my German side with the 20 seconds. Okay, so now we'll go to the panel discussion. And I think we've had a nice overview of the international private sector perspective and what is needed, but then flipping that over to the government of Kenya side, the next question for Director John Kiria, what specific policy incentives or regulatory reforms are being considered in Kenya? If you could just give a few insights on that, please, and how to enable those international companies to come here.
Yes, thank you for that question. Because thank you for that question, because in terms of policy incentives, it's one of the key criteria that any outsourcer will critically be able to analyze and inform as a decision to basically come and invest in the country. So the first that is very key to any investor in the sector is basically, especially for Europe, is the issue of data protection. We have laws that sufficiently address the sharing of data. I'm glad that in Kenya currently, we are aligning our Data Protection Act together with the PR Act so that we can have an adequacy agreement that we are able to align our Data Protection Act together with the GDPR. And through that adequacy agreement, we will be able to undertake the function of data sharing between the country and any European company out there. So the other thing that is very key, of course, is the issue of labor laws reforms, because you will see that with BPOs, you are basically serving a lot of multinationals. These multinationals are very sensitive in terms of who they deal with and who they are purported to be served by, because any bad PR for their companies, irrespective of, especially in terms of labor laws, then definitely it comes back to the company and is able to hurt the company's image. Think case in point, you have seen how Tesla is currently suffering from just that aspect of the consumer, feeling that the company is not responsible enough. So that's what happens in the BPO sector. Most companies are very sensitive also to that. Then, of course, the issue of fiscal incentives is very key. Tax reforms is business registration. It's very key. So all this is a package that has to be, presented in an attractive way to entice, because you are competing. That is what we need to understand. We are competing against other countries. So how do we leverage our country to compete and to be able to be attractive? So we have to give a package that is attractive, a package that can compete with other countries. Because currently, you will see in many other countries, the traditional BPO countries, the costs have been steadily going up. But for Africa, we are, the stars are aligning for us in this sector. So if we don't take advantage now, they will not align forever. The world moves around. So stars will also move. They will not align for us forever. So this is our time. We need to do the right things at the right time, and we attract the investment that is in this sector. As you have had JB present here, the money is big. So if we can only attract even 1% of it, when you are talking of 300 billion dollars, if we can attract even 1% of it, it will change the country, it will change our economy. So let me keep it at that. And to you.
Thank you, Director. I can see John Beardsley nodding. So it seems to be working. But then let me throw that over to Dr. Ehud Gachugu on the Kenyan private sector side. So what opportunities can the industry association leverage in this context, such as, for example, the regional trade agreements, outsourcing trends, and so on? How can the Kenyan private sector align with that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I want to start by saying that when we look at the GBS, BPO, ITS, we're talking business. And the first thing is to really understand that for business, it's just a matter of return on investment. And therefore, if we think about, business process outsourcing, GBS, it's a question of how are we transforming the sector to be business ready for taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available in the country, both nationally and also those that can come as a result of efforts that we are putting to promote the country as an investment destination. Looking at that, the BPO GBS sector operates within a very competitive ecosystem. And this ecosystem comprises of, the whole marketing element and promotion that has been discussed at length. There's the whole aspect of building the capacity of the operators to be able to see and to tap into the opportunities that are available. There's a whole incentive system that Director John has mentioned that needs to get in. But more importantly is the skilling level, because every operator is looking for where they can have workforce that is productive, that can be able to cut down on their labor costs, but also increase the output. As it has been rightly said, 1% increase in the output of the BPO sector in Kenya can take all the jobs that Deputy Ambassador has mentioned in Germany, 700,000. So it means that if you look at it from a business perspective and think about what businesses are looking for, then we are close to that. Allow me to make 3 key submissions. The first thing that every business and every association like ourselves are looking for is the right workforce, the workforce that is skilled and skilled to the level in which we can be able to make business grow and also increase the revenue. In Kenya and in Africa, we have very skilled workforce. There's a gap around being skilled and being talented to be able to get to a level where you can then increase the productivity. And as such, one of the things that we need to think about when we're talking about the talent and what we are looking for from a private sector perspective is, for example, is a workforce that's globally aware, given the fact that the transformation is really global. The second element is that it's the workforce that is able to to create an element where you are able to see opportunities and help create business to grow. So this is all growth mindset, resilience, and adaptability. And so talent is important. The second thing that has been happening is around technology. One of the most important conversation that we're not talking a lot about the country and the continent is about the level of technology. Kenya as a country is a leading country in the startup ecosystem. And for us to be able to create innovations in GBS, BPO sector, innovation is very important. Every buyer is looking for an innovative environment where they can embed their services, get more value and return on investment. M-Pesa, which is a financial platform, and the driving fintech is something that is extremely important. My third point is around creating relationships that are context oriented. We've talked very much about the European market. One thing that we don't really speak a lot is about creating trust, because business is about trust, and you only be able to create that trust at national level if you're working through intermediaries that are able to understand markets, able to understand business, and be able to service the things that should even be embedded within the training program and in the conversations. We have seen a lot of business missions that are taking place, and the question is, when you don't feel like you trust the person you're talking to, then that really becomes an issue. They will go and they will not come back. So just understanding what the market dynamics are for each of the regions is very important. So it's not a one size fit all for everyone. I think we have to be nuanced around certain markets, certain needs of each of the different sectors that we're looking for, and prepare our local domestic operators to be able to understand that, because the success for us as a country will lie with the capacity of our domestic operators. We are proud to have the largest SME ecosystem in the country, and that's what we want to take advantage, so that we prepare it for takeoff and for business to business discussions and opportunity matching when they are available from other sources.
Thank you, Ehud. They were very, very important points. Let me just take the last one you mentioned about building the trust. I agree. This is, I think, a key issue, especially because it's still an emerging and upcoming market. It's also something John Beardsley mentioned. I'd like to address my next question to Mr. Fiele on the trust. How do you build that trust, and what kind of mechanisms can we put in place to connect the two and just facilitate that?
Thank you. How do you build trust? I think that is something that takes. That is always mentioned in these kind of discussions. It takes very long to build trust, but you can lose it very, very quickly. I think that is something one has to be aware of. I think one thing that is very important is that if an investor comes into the country, we have seen that with many others, he first goes to his peer group and looks who is already in the country, who has invested before. Then he will ask him, what is your experience? And if the feedback is not good, then it's done already. So government representatives, embassies, etc., can tell what they want. If the peer group is not satisfied and gives that kind of feedback, it does not help. So I think that is an important part of trust. Then transparency, I think, is important. Corruption-free environment is very important. Equal treatment of all businesses is important. So those general business climate and business environment issues, I think, are important for investors to come to the country. On the other hand side, just to mention that also, that goes a bit away from your question. I mean, we have all the instruments. We Germans can contribute to a good environment and a good development in that sector. We have GIZ being very active here. I mean, you're yourself part of that team. We have a digital dialogue between the two governments, the German government and the Kenyan government, where we talk about concrete business challenges and how we can actually tackle them and have a way forward. And we have the instrument of inviting German business delegations, so businessmen who are actually looking for new opportunities through the Office of the Delegate of German Business and Industry, to bring them here and to actually look for the opportunities that can happen. So I think from the government side, we are well positioned, and we will keep on using those instruments to show that there is a business case here in Kenya. But I mentioned the issues before that have to be, I think, also tackled from the Kenyan side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fearley. That was exactly also what I was hoping you would say, which is to also talk about the mechanisms of how do we get that trust, and then, of course, mention GIZ and all the work you've been supporting. We need to hear from the domestic sector. I think that's key because it's about creating trust, but what are the issues on the ground? How can we grow this industry? So to you, William, what emerging market opportunities can BPO operators like Adept leverage?
Thank you. It's a great question, and I like how the conversation is going into trust. So one of the key things that we've noticed and actually experienced as helping open up these emerging opportunities is leveraging the partnerships. So GIZ runs the import promotion desk, of which we participated in last year, and it gave us an opportunity to stand in front of German companies, real live clients. Now, digital marketing can do a lot for you. It can get you noticed. It can have the right keywords and it can drive traffic to your website, but nothing beats a real live session where a consumer, a client asks you, what have you done? Who else have you worked with, right? That's another question that a lot of German companies will ask you, who else have you worked with? And so the IPD, for example, has given us that platform, right, to refine our value proposition, to really figure out what exactly do you want to talk about, because you can't do everything, right? Like you're saying, there's a whole host of services you can offer. So what are you good at? And so for local BPOs, it's to find those opportunities to grasp them and run with them. Because out of IPD, we're able to make pitches and some are going on a positive direction. So we're happy about that. And so partnerships for us is key. For local BPOs, partnerships are really key. Second thing, very quickly, is how do you scale? And clients will ask you, all right, you can offer the customer experience, and then what? What can you add? What's a value add on top of the customer experience? And I think one of your slides as you go on is about data analytics. And it was mentioned in the plenary session earlier on. And we're seeing that opportunity because a client will ask you, okay, so what does the average handle time mean? So you need to be able to pass that data and, expound on it a bit more. We are the local operators. We're the ears on the ground. We hear what the clients say. And some are looking to come into Kenya and they want to expand their customer bases. So that has to be really key. And then thirdly is local market opportunities. We feel as BPO operators, there are more opportunities to be untapped, to be opened up in the local market. How do we grow that awareness with our local players? Obviously, the telcos, the banks, retailers, anyone with an e-commerce will have that customer support side. But you'd be surprised there's some niche other industries like the agricultural tech who deal with farmers, who deal with agri-hubs and agri-businesses. They have a need for outsourced services. So it's how do we unlock some of these opportunities from a local market perspective?
Thank you, William. Very well noted, I think, as well on the challenges and the need for partnerships. So then I'll go back to John Beardsley and ask him, or ask you, what specific risks or barriers do international investors face that potentially can stop these partnerships from happening? What challenges are we facing in that space that we need to address?
Yeah. As I said, most aren't looking, which is the big problem, right? Outside of South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, they're just not really looking. And then when they look, they need to have answers to inevitably, if it's a Concentrix or an Aloric or Infosys or Wipro, they have all of their data. They have all their operating data from literal years of operating data on costs in the Philippines and Colombia and so forth and so on. And so if you're not able to almost immediately say, this is where you get the talent, this is how much it costs, this is another operator with some experience, then you're kind of stuck. They're going to go with, this is not an industry. I've said this at other panels. This is not an industry that tolerates ambiguity and risk. Think about what the industry is in the first place. You're asking another company to take over processes in your business so you don't have to think about it. So the minute that there's a sniff of blood in the water of oh boy, they're not going to deliver. These are delivery hubs, right? So data and experience, that is just critical. These are very, very tough decisions for companies to make. But and I could go on and on about international operators. I mean, I think corporate tax holidays are nice. Codifying transfer pricing is fantastic. No cost work permits, so you can do knowledge transfer. Remember, the minute that you want to operationalize a BPO hub, you've got to bring in people from the Philippines or Colombia, or, etc. Right? From a, there's also the local operators that, I think we absolutely need to enable. But I think you're asking more about the global stuff.
No, thank you. I think, and just asking about that thing of focus, that there's a lack of focus or lack of awareness. I suppose the question is, what can we do? I know someone who's just come back from Berlin, who's been really holding the Kenya BPO flag very, very high. So I'd like to ask Director Kiria, what can we do to create more focus about Kenya and promote Kenya? And maybe you can share 1 or 2 sentences about your recent trip to Berlin.
Yes. In fact, that's a very good question, because one of the biggest issues in this sector is how we have branded ourselves. So if you go there, Africa, sometimes people think it's one country, and we have 54 countries in Africa. And that's the fact. So we need also to brand ourselves accordingly as individual countries, and especially, yes, giving some of the discussions we were having with now real clients in Berlin. That was the issue, because majority of them have never stepped into Africa. They have never visited the continent, so they literally know nothing about the continent. So both as a country and as a continent, we need to come up with a branding that will be able to put us out there. Somebody who has never been here, they need to capture and know that Africa, we have 54 countries. All these countries are unique. All these countries have, governments that run and organize them. Because definitely these are some of the stereotyping that Africa has. Because you hear one corner of Africa, as drought, another corner is fighting, and you think the entire continent, is at war with it. People are just dying, but that's not true. So sometimes, South Sudan is very big and very far away from Kenya. So, but they don't know. So definitely we need to come up with an image rebranding for the continent, so that, this notion of we are in the dark continent, then maybe we need to light a bigger lamp for the continent. It shines brighter for people to see that the continent is not dark. It's definitely bright, because that's part of the problem as to why many clients cannot, bring and outsource their jobs to Africa. Is an aspect of stereotyping, is an aspect of misinformation, is an aspect that they don't know. They would like to, they don't know. So we need to give them that opportunity to appreciate what we can offer. And we need to do that very deliberately. It's a deliberate action we need to take, both as a country and also as a continent. So in Berlin, for example, we were in an African pavilion where we were, 5 African countries. So it was quite exciting, even for, the customers to come and find 5 African countries in one pavilion. And, that's where now they could start, understanding that we are not one country as Africa. We have different countries who are offering different things. So it is, quite interesting when you actually engage the client and the customer and you hear their perception. Because sometimes even for us, we might think that, they understand us. The customer does not understand us. So we need to go out there literally and give them an history lesson, a geography lesson, and a marketing lesson, all combined into one. And then we might start seeing results. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I think we can give a clap for that. So there'll be lots of lessons. One key takeaway was, though, that we went from Kenya to GTEx in Europe in Berlin, and now GTEx is coming to Kenya next year, 19th to 21st of May, 2026, which is, I think we were, yeah, please go. Which I think was good timing on our part. It had nothing to do with us. I think it's the hard work of PS Tanui, but of course, we like to shine as well along that. So talking about branding, I think branding is key. but as any good brand, and I'm not from marketing, but it has to be built on substance. And I think there, as we mentioned at the beginning, there's still some challenges. So to Ehud, what are the challenges? What are the most critical gaps in Kenya's BPO, ITO ecosystem that we need to overcome in order to exactly achieve that level of branding?
Yeah. All right. Good. Thank you very much for that question. There are three key things that we need to keep an eye on. As the PS was presenting and everyone else is presenting, there is a common African value proposition around talent, and I believe this is really what the continent holds. I also think that we can add talent to the fact that for Africa, one of the challenges around data and insights does not speak the whole value that African brings to the GBS sector. And therefore, for branding, it's important that we get the data to the dot and get to know what the data is talking about. There has to be a differentiator for each and every country. Of course, I've talked very much about CX roles. For Kenya, due to the scale in which we've really deepened and advanced our technological innovations, our technological skilling, we can map our path different. And a research that we recently conducted shows that for Kenya, we are ready now to reflect to more advanced type of digital work that can be outsourced. And I feel that's really where we need now to be sharpening our value proposition so that we are differentiating ourselves as a country which has the best software developers in the world, cybersecurity experts in the world, data scientists in the world, those high-paying opportunities. And then we're able to move the ecosystem that is on the foundational intermediate so that they can grow up. The ripple effect is that that then helps the country to have a unique value proposition, despite the fact that you also need to grow all these other job families that also have quite a lot of interest globally. The second point that is pertinent for our branding is the level of infrastructure development. Yes, we are not yet there. We are not in the standards in which we would love to be, but there's a lot of work that has been done to ensure that accessibility of electricity, accessibility of roads, digital infrastructure is visible in every part of this country. We run programs in the very remote areas of this country, and no one talks about the transformations that are happening in those very remote areas, West Pokot to the Dab to everywhere. There's a lot of access to internet. Yes, of course, it's not at the level of the speed. It is not at the very last point that would, but the openness of that infrastructure helps us to see the expansion of the BPO sector. We now have new hubs that are emerging beyond Nairobi. We see Nyeri, we see Mombasa, we see Nakuru. Those are all new emerging centers that have very unique value propositions that they are bringing that then helps the country to be an entire land where we can talk about ability to double down on global business services. My third point is that from a business perspective, Kenya, we've really been very good in certain products, say talk about coffee, talk about, tourism. And those are some of the things that we need to start doubling down on and aligning our value proposition. For you to create trust in business, it is not, maybe sometimes it doesn't even start with business. It starts from known, moving to unknown. And I think as we continue not to talk about what Kenya holds, we need to have a national outlook of what we are good at and now, combine what we are good at nationally with the new opportunities that we are seeing in the GBS, ITS sector. And I think with that combination plus our silver, bullet talent, we will be able to brand the country uniquely and not give value to the world.
Thank you, Ehud. We're sort of we have to be mindful of time. So I'll give one more question to you, William, just to see, I think it's key. One of the real goals is how can we support the domestic operators to really scale? and what are the challenges you're facing? I think that'll be really. We've looked at the opportunities, but let's also have a quick look, and then we'll open up to the audience to ask our esteemed panel some questions.
Thank you. So market positioning obviously is big. How do we change the perceptions? How do we tell the authentic stories? How do we share the impact stories? Because there are clients there for whom impact is important. So how do we tell those stories? How do we show those narratives and demonstrate that really we are capable? The other one is, so Hazard, you've got an audience with a global client, and they understand perhaps your skill level is going to take a bit of time, and they're willing to take a chance on you. There are a couple of things where they will not perhaps want to take chances on. Your data security and your compliance frameworks. Those are really, really critical. So even as a local player, we have to educate what are these standards? What are these compliance frameworks? Whether it's your ISO 27001, it's your SOC 2, whatever it is, what's your quality management process? How do you understand workforce management? So you have to get really immersed into what it takes to deliver, because that really is a game changer. And because sometimes they're willing to handhold you for the first few months, and we'll work with you, we'll train you, will help you build that capacity, but there are things they will not compromise on. And so for the local market, that's really important. For the local operators, really, that's really important for us to take that active role and say, what can we do? What can we learn that positions us better for these opportunities when they come knocking? So,
Yeah. Thank you, William. That is well noted. I think that's a very important point on capacity building and what are the expectations on the certification, and also the internal processes of any company to, just as JB mentioned, to give them that trust and make sure that everything is in order. So I think, please join me. We'll go to the questions, but just give them a quick round of applause, please, to our great panel. Thank you. Before we go to the questions, if anyone here has noticed the gender balance or the lacking gender balance, that is my fault. We've really tried our best. But yeah, we've got very good experts. We really tried to balance it. It didn't work out. This is really on me. So please don't have any other problems with that. But we'll give it to the audience, please. Any questions, do raise your hand, say who you are, who you represent, and please keep it short. I know we're a bit late, but yeah, please, over to you. It's always hard to go first. If you don't ask me, I'll start asking you. So maybe just a quick show of hands. Who here is from the private sector? Who's a private sector representative in the room? That's fine. I won't ask you necessarily questions. I'm just sort of... And who... So that's good. And who's from government? Okay. So we have quite a few people who are neither from that or the other, which is great. But still, thanks for coming. But just from the private sector. So... do you see, can those who think the topic of GBS is an opportunity, can you please raise your hands after this first session? Is it something worth exploring? Because that was our goal. I think if we can at least get like 6, 7, 8 companies counting in the room who will explore this sector and help us push this, I think that was already in itself a big achievement. I think any other questions? I think we're good. I think then, please everyone join me, give a huge thanks to the panel. Thank you for the great answers and for being here. Oh, there is a question. It's too late now. Oh no, of course it's not too late.
It's a short question. The aspect, my name is Mohamed Mouloud from Sahrawi Republic. I want to ask about the aspect of legal issue, legislative and law in these countries. For example, the parliament, how is give facilities or not? If it is the issue of legislative, they can explain.
If I understand correctly, it's about the policy side, the regulatory side, and what Kenya is doing. So that is definitely aimed at you, Director Kiria, please.
Thank you for that question. I think in terms of policy regulation, that is where we are really ahead even of the private sector, because December of last year, we actually amended our Business Registration Act where to allow for registration of BPOs. So that one is already in law. That was the first win for the sector. So currently we're in the final stages of finalizing our BPO, national BPO policy. That one is as well as done. We have already done 3 stakeholder engagements. So we move to the final draft and approve of the documents. So that one is already there. After that, we will start on the BPO strategy. So in terms of data protection, we already have the Data Protection Act. We have the Office of the Data Commissioner. It is operational. It is fully tried and tested. And we are just now aligning it to the various, data protection acts that also exist, where especially we have customers. A country like UAE, we have a data sharing memorandum of understanding for data sharing. So in terms of, and we are going to do that also with many other countries that we see they overvalue. Also, we have already last week, we signed with support of GIZ to do our data management policy for the national data management policy. GIZ is supporting us through the African Union. So that is already work that has started. So regulation-wise and policy-wise, we are really ahead of the private sector. They need to, now you need to follow us and start bringing in the business for us to support you. And finally, we have the special economic zones where we have classified and now allowed BPOs to also set up in our special economic zones where they can enjoy the incentives that are clustered under the special economic zone. And we already have 2 of the biggest in the world, that is Teleperformance and CCI, already set up in 2 of our special economic zones. So that's a big win for BPOs, because there before, it was not clustered as part of one of the businesses that can be set up. And as you have heard, also the PS present, in terms of work permits, it is work that we are already working on to facilitate you when you invest your staff to get, that special recognition or category for work permits to allow BPO staff, the expert BPO staff, to come and support the sector. So we have really worked hard. We are only waiting for you to come and we support you further.
Yes, please. Next question.
Yeah, sure. My name is Patrick Bogo. I'm come from the London Internet Exchange. So we're just one of the infrastructure providers on the ICT part to enable access to internet. But my question about for the BPO, especially now that we're having some focus on Germany, for example, that are given 750,000 jobs that are available. I think one of the challenges is language, right? In Kenya, our primary official language is Swahili, and which is the local language, and English, which is basically the language of instruction, right? But the challenge that comes is, like, for example, German is like a third language for a Kenyan. And if you look, the access to training for some of these languages, for example, to be able to be conversant in actually speaking and articulating your issues is a problem. The average cost at the moment is about between 30,000 Kenyan shillings, which is basically approximately something like what about 250,000, about $300 to something close to $1,000, right? For the purpose of doing German course to intermediate level. So my question is to the Deputy Ambassador in terms of, is there any programs that, or even the government is doing to be able to make sure that the training for the language itself, which is basically a barrier, you are a technical person, but you can't be able to communicate in German. So basically, you cannot be able to serve that market. So the question is: there any program that we are doing that helps that we are advancing in terms of the language entry and acceptance in the market? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We've come across this question also many times when it comes to skilled labor migration to Germany. There we really have the issue that for almost all professions, you have to speak German before you go to Germany. I don't see this that much as a problem for BPO. It depends a little bit. If we talk about call centers, then yes, German would be a necessity. But if you talk about high value jobs, development of software, I don't know, many of you know better what kind of jobs are there. You don't need to speak German. I mean, those companies usually also in Germany speak English amongst their employees. What do we do to increase the opportunities to learn Germany? We have the Goethe Institute here, which was until a year ago the only institution where you could learn German. That has changed. We now have 2 private providers here in the country who are also able to issue certificates, so to really give also the proofs that someone has a certain language level. We are in discussion with Kenyan universities and with the Kenyan Ministry of Education and Labor to improve the training for German teachers at universities. So currently there is University of Nairobi, which offers studies for those who want to become German teachers. So I don't see it only as a job for the German government. It's also something where the Kenyan government actually has to provide the assets, and that is at university level. And we are working on it. We are collaborating, and we are doing constantly. We are making progress.
Thank you, Mr. Fearley. Before we close the panel, I'd like to make one statement. So we've managed to attract 8 new companies into the BPO sector. I think for today's session, that is good. We said we don't want to talk, we want to do stuff. So I think I call upon these 8 companies to start doing stuff. We're here to support. I have a colleague here, Amrit Labaram, who works for the Kenyan-German Digital Dialogue, who runs or coordinates the BPO working group between Germany and Kenya. And anyone, Amrit, if you can please get up, please stand up. Anyone who wants to be in touch can get in touch with him or myself. But before we move to the closing remarks, I think please give a huge round of applause to this panel and all the insight. Thank you very much. And then Christine, over to you for the closing remarks. That's Christine Schulz-Kaunga, the program head of the Digital Transformation Center, Kenya. Please give a round of applause.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jörg. Good afternoon. Once again, Your Excellency, the Zambian Ambassador, the Deputy Head of the German Mission, Sander Firle, Honorable P.S. Tanui, Your Excellency, the Minister who just arrived, esteemed guests and very much esteemed panel, thank you very much. I think my role is now to pass on the vote of thanks and appreciate all of you. And first of all, I would really like to appreciate the audience. I think it has been wonderful to have such a full room and actually being in a room with enthusiastic faces following the discussions. I sat in the very front, but whenever I turned around, I could look into a lot of eyes, which is always a really good sign. So please, once more, an applause for all of you for following closely and asking questions. And I'm pretty sure there are very many more questions open. And it's great actually to have this panel, to have this session on the very first day of the Connected Africa Summit. And yeah, my big applause and appreciation to the panel. I think from my point of view, this was an incredibly rich discussion. It was a wonderful way of combining different perspectives, but also different experiences and different insights into this actually quite complex topic of BPO and IT outsourcing and what role Kenya can play in the context of the global markets. I think as we have heard from PS Tanui, BPO IT-enabled services are a strategic lever for Kenya. I think this became very clear. And I think also the mission of the Kenyan ministry or the Kenyan government in general to encourage Kenyan youth and also to guide them to actually take those opportunities and make them work became very clear as well. For me, it's very hard to summarize something that was so rich, but maybe also to start very much with what was alluded already and combine it with a special appreciation that I actually have for the colleagues who managed to fly very quickly from Germany and back to Nairobi and now actually arrived here at the coast in Diani again. And I think this is a very nice coincidence because it simply shows to me how much tempo there is actually in this current discussion around Kenya and BPO IT outsourcing. So we have a delegation actually including Jörg. We had 3 people here on the panel who were just until yesterday still in Berlin participating at the GTEX there and the global service roadshow that there was representing Kenya. We heard some of the takeaways there. And I think this for me really visualizes how right now is such a good time to move forward in Kenya and to really discuss what do we need to change, where do we need to become stronger to move this topic forward. I also really appreciate that Jörg at least mentioned it already as a man, that we can do better in terms of the gender balance. So very happy that I didn't have to make this remark as the very first person, particularly considering that we heard that more than 60% in the sector are actually women. So I think, this gives us some food for thought and surely we can do better. But yeah, otherwise, what have we learned? I think we have clearly learned that Kenya has emerged as a key digital hub in Africa, has a vibrant ICT sector. We don't need to repeat this. And we have a very young and tech-savvy population that offers tremendous opportunity for digital services. We have also learned that different global industries, not just Germany, and we heard also a lot of European countries actually moving towards this, a lot of different global industries increasingly require software developers, cybersecurity experts, cloud engineers, digital service providers, all of whom can actually work remotely or relocate with the right support. And I think this is the question, with the right support. We had the German perspective here and the very specific case of showing one, and I'm pretty sure there are others, of those very tangible win-win situations or opportunities that we have. Kenya can provide the skills, while Germany can offer market access and actually just simply needs a lot of experts. We can deepen the conversation of what were our takeaways, but I think for me, a very interesting takeaway was that we circled several times around the topic of trust. So what do we need in order to move forward with this topic? And we need trust, we need infrastructure. Yes, we alluded to some of the challenges there. We need accredited, also higher level skills, and we need compliance frameworks. But what I found also very interesting in the panel discussion which came out is, while we might need all of this and Kenya and everyone else can be better in this, it's at the same time a lot about the perception. And I think this is something that we can all jointly work on. And I think this is exactly what we did, was simply being here all together in this room today, speaking about it, talking about it, moving around the globe, going to Berlin, going to different conferences and actually working on the perception that is there. Because indeed, there has been quite some tremendous movement in Kenya as well in addressing some of those topics. And we've talked about, for example, the data adequacy and the big progress that has happened in terms of data protection, data sharing in Kenya, which definitely leads to a pathway where this opens a lot of other doors, hopefully in the future. So what is next and what can we do now afterwards? I think, of course, we can build partnerships. We can build trust with talking to each other. We can work on different vocational, also higher level skills training programs, alignment with different standards, international standards, and meet certification requirements globally. I think as Germany, as GIZ, we are very much in the middle of supporting this transition, this topic, and we will definitely continue the conversations, also with the digital dialogues that Alexander was mentioning. But we're also, very eager to see future topics that will further help us moving forward. So I think the adequacy was mentioned there, but also I think the question with peer exchange is something that we can definitely try to push further. I think the question of trust and actually talking first to your peers instead of trusting, the papers and the analysis that we all read is something we can also utilize a little as a lever and really, foster this exchange. So without many more words, I would simply like to appreciate once more this room, the full engaging crowd that we were today. I can really encourage all of you to continue this conversation. We recognize there's a lot of more topics that we only started, getting a glimpse of. So today is day one of the Connected Africa Summit, and the good opportunity is that we all can continue this conversation throughout the next 3 days. Very much looking forward to maybe dive deeper into some of those topics and see where we are at the next Connected Africa Summit and what we can report back. So thank you very much also for splendid moderation to my colleague Jörg. Thank you very much to all the panelists. And have a lovely evening at the Connected Africa Summit. Thank you very much.